extremes and everything in between in their riding. And really what we're going to talk about today are more advanced techniques to blow off energy from your bike. We're going to talk a little bit about blowing off energy on a vertical plane, but then we're going to get to some more advanced techniques where we talk more about blowing energy off on a horizontal plane and letting energy go out the side of your bike. This is going to be helpful for when you're racing and you want to get back on the ground, or if you're out free riding and maybe you're hitting a section pretty fast to get into another section, maybe to clear a jump or something like that, allow you to carry your speed through sections smoothly. Whether or not some of this riding you see today is over your head, it doesn't really matter. We can apply some of these same basic principles to any kind of riding, really. So Jerry, one of the things you just talked about was starting to link trail sections together. And one of the ideas that we want to work on today is being able to move the bike in a way that allows us to get into the next section really well. And one of the concepts we want to talk about and really kind of work out today is the idea of riding off twos. And what I mean by that is I'm going to lead with my hands and follow with my feet. And I don't want to get too caught all at once off a jump. I want to be able to divide those things because I want to be able to get my front wheel back down into the terrain and move on to the next thing.
As I'm approaching the lip, I absorb the jump up into my hands, letting the handlebars of my bike come up into me. And as I release off the lip, I extend my arms so you create a forward momentum and flight arc as opposed to an upward coming off the lip as a full scoop.
Nice and soft. You're looking really good off this jump, but what I want to get you doing is landing a little more softly and starting to really think about landing with both tires in the same place and not at the same time. And you're right in between that. You're not quite landing with both tires at the same time, but your front tire is getting out of the transition and your back tire is just hooking up a little bit on the top. The other thing is I want you to go into a position where you're softening your feet just a little bit on the landing. Your feet are still a little bit firm from takeoff. And what that's causing is a little bit of feedback into your bicycle in a moment where you're compressing, rebounding, and then having to regain control of the bike.
So yeah. You're riding up, you're approaching the lip, and you absorb the lip up into you. Mm-hmm. So that's what you're doing off the face.
Okay.
And then as you come off, you rebound.
Okay.
And so you go from here and then to there.
Okay. Just
you see what I'm saying? That's the movement.
Okay.
And that's what's going to break your jump up from fours into twos.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we're not trying to get you at the end of your rope, but because I guarantee you when you try this, you're not going to get back here the first time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's the motion that you want to be doing.
Okay.
You have a lot more range in your body movement on your bike than you feel like you do.
And one of the things that we do with people sometimes is like just get people on the ground to start doing things where they feel leverage and just start moving around on your bike and just start playing with it side to side or whatever, and just seeing how far you can move your bike and that it's okay to be here and it's okay to be here.
Yeah.
And right now you're standing a little bit centrally over your bike, and that's creating a lot of compression into it, and it's making it really hard to let the energy escape from underneath you. So Jerry, on that last jump, I noticed you were starting to get some good movement with your bike, starting to blow that energy off to the side and get some good counter-directional steering. And the way we were setting up for the turn, we were kind of throwing a little bit of a whip almost, just to kind of set up. But that same kind of activity we did there can be used to create a tabletop. If you think about it, what you're really doing on a tabletop is compressing into the jump, and then as you counter-directional steer sideways, you're letting that energy come up and bring that bike flat up underneath you. So some of these tricks we're learning for technique today are also going to be tricks we can use for style. And really, for being passive and letting energy blow through us, a squash is probably going to be something you're actually going to use more frequently coming down the trail. And that's going to be a technique where we're going to scoot a little bit off the back of the bike instead of just being passive and letting the bike move toward us. At some point the bike is going to hit into us. It can only move so far. So at that point we're going to release it out a little bit in front of us, and it's going to be a very effective tool for changing our flight pattern and minimizing our flight arc and staying low over a jump. Now what I want to do is combine the other elements that Lars was touching on earlier, which is moving around a little bit on your bicycle. So we've gone from being somewhat static over the bicycle and riding off fours a little bit and getting quite a bit of air here to now really starting to get subtle with the lip and absorb some of it. Now what we want to do is work our angles, the angles of the terrain. We're turning a little bit coming into this jump, and it turns a little bit on landing, so I can start to play with that and let some of that energy not just escape up through my body, but let it escape in other ways on my bicycle, because this is a dynamic moment and my body is moving at this time. So I want to utilize that movement to blow that energy off in other directions. That was really good. You're starting to utilize the angles of the trail to deflect some of that energy. That looked really good. So I want you to just kind of keep playing around with this. Like Lars says, find a place you're comfortable with and just play around with that energy. Don't do anything too crazy, but just start to let that energy find ways to dissipate without shooting the rider up into the air. Okay. So Jerry, we've been working on counter-directional steering, talking about how that lends into really blowing off energy and that sort of thing, but it has another use on the trail. And we're going to talk about that right here. Basically what we have here is a small jump followed by a left-hand turn. So we can use cones to kind of make the section more and more difficult to get into, so that you're required to take more and more of a turn in order to get into the section. So here what we're going to be doing is actually throwing our counter-directional steering to the right to help us initiate a left-hand turn down off this jump and into the gully here. Now we're going to talk about this jump in a more basic way. We're just going to talk about hitting it straight, and we're going to even go further with the idea of being active. What we talked about before with being active was firming our feet up and letting that jump build compression into our human suspension and into our bicycle suspension, and then releasing that. Well, there's going to be times coming down the trail, maybe I make a mistake, or I need to jump high to get up something, and maybe I'm going a little slowly for the jump, and I really need to get extra active off it. In that rare instance, it's going to be totally fine to basically simulate a J-hop up off the top of the jump, just to get that quick height and that nice flight arc that I'm looking for, to get absolute maximum out of the jump possible. So this wouldn't be something that we would do if we were coming into a jump too fast or something like that. It's only something to really accentuate a jump at low speed. Okay. So we're going to basically be mimicking a J-hop here. Let's talk for a minute about manuals. Manuals are more than just a great way to show your style. Manuals are very useful on the trail as well. They can get us through a rock garden or through a ditch with speed. So how do we manual? We want to tip back onto our heels, and we want to create pressure into the palms of our hands. We're going to envision an invisible line between our hands and our hips. And as I tip my heels back into the bicycle, I'm going to create tension on this invisible line between my hands and my hips. And it's that tension that's going to allow the front wheel to lift. Notice that if I sit on my bicycle here and I just shift my hips back, I'm not going to grab underneath the grips. So I'm going suicide grip here. If I just shift my weight back, what happens? The bike comes up. As I move back in relation to the bicycle and I get not quite to the end of my rope, but to where my elbows are almost locked out, and I just leave them at that precise place on each side, that's going to create tension. It's going to allow that front end to lift. Let's spend some time talking about J-hopping and how it differs from bunny hopping. With the traditional bunny hop, the rider pulls with his hands and feet all at the same time, making his bicycle lift off the ground all at once. This is problematic for several reasons. The main reason is that we always want to lead with our hands and follow with our feet, keeping our bodies riding off twos and not riding off fours. Riding off fours